The morning sun painted the sleepy cul-de-sac in muted gold, a gentle greeting that usually heralded peace and routine. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and the distant hum of an early jogger's sneakers on pavement was a comforting lullaby to the neighborhood. Yet, beneath this serene exterior, a storm brewed in the form of Karen, our ever-watchful HOA sentinel. Karen was a fixture, as unyielding as the ancient oak that loomed over her perfectly manicured lawn. Her gaze, sharp and probing, was a security camera in its own right, recording every perceived transgression with unspoken disdain. She was the self-appointed guardian of rules, an enforcer of unasked-for order. And today her sights were set on me. My dog, Sable, lay sprawled on the porch, a regal presence with fur the color of midnight, eyes that gleamed with wisdom beyond his canine years. He was a certified service animal, a lifeline of calm amid my turbulent seas. His bark was rare, a soulful symphony reserved for moments of necessity. Yet, today, his deep, resonant voice echoed through the stillness, a subtle protest against the unseen. Karen's approach was as inevitable as the changing tides. Her footsteps crunched against the gravel path, precise and purposeful. I watched her from the corner of my eye, my fingers absently tracing the rough edges of a ceramic mug. The tea within was warm, its steam a comforting whisper against my skin. The air shifted as she neared, charged with the electric tension of her disapproval. She glanced at Sable, then at me, her lips pressed into a familiar line of dissatisfaction. I met her gaze, offering a silent nod, an olive branch of neighborly peace. Her expression didn't change, a stone fortress impervious to goodwill. Sable's bark had been brief, a warning at most, but to Karen it was an affront of the highest order. Her voice, sharp and clipped, broke the morning's tranquility. In that moment, she stood as a self-styled avenger of harmony, protector of an imagined peace. The irony was not lost on me. The encounter passed like a shadow, her words fading into the ether, leaving in their wake a sense of inevitability. I returned to my tea, savoring the way its warmth spread through me, grounding me. Sable resumed his quiet vigil, a sentinel of serenity. We existed in this fragile stasis, a delicate balance between compliance and defiance. As the day wore on, I contemplated the absurdity of it all. The rules Karen clung to were arbitrary, mere constructs of her desire for control. In contrast, Sable's service was tangible, a balm for invisible wounds. The dichotomy was stark, a testament to the folly of misplaced priorities. Later, when the call came, a curt summons from the HOA board, I felt the tension crystallize, a silent affirmation of Karen's crusade. There was a certain poetry to it all. Her actions were the opening salvos in an unasked-for war, a battle I had no choice but to join, not with aggression, but with quiet resilience. So, I prepared, not with weapons or words, but with patience, the kind that comes from understanding the triviality of the combat at hand. I would meet this challenge not with confrontation, but with the steadfast presence of Sable by my side, a reminder of what truly mattered. This was only the beginning, I knew. The story Karen had unwittingly set into motion would unfold with the inexorable grace of a slowly building storm. Yet, in the stillness before the tempest, I found a strange comfort. For in the face of Karen's fervor and the HOA's demands, Sable and I stood anchored, unwavering in our silent defiance. The morning sun painted the neighborhood in golden hues, a deceptive tranquility blanketing the chaos simmering underneath. As I stepped outside with Charlie, my service dog, I couldn't help but notice the watchful eyes peering from behind suburban curtains. Their curiosity was palpable, an invisible string pulling at the fabric of our ordinary lives. Karen had declared war, her meticulously manicured lawn now a battlefield, her grievances artillery. It started with a notice taped defiantly to my door, the paper flapping in the breeze like a white flag of surrender I had no intention of giving. The message, scrawled in neat, aggressive handwriting, was a testament to her resolve. Noise violation. An accusation encased in officious language, the ink barely masking the venom beneath. Charlie's bark had been deemed a public nuisance, a threat to Karen's crafted sense of order. Charlie's tags jingled as we crossed the threshold, his presence a silent protest against her tyranny. He was oblivious to the brewing storm, his eyes reflecting only trust and loyalty. I clung to his calm like a lifeline. He had always been more than a pet, a steady anchor in the choppy seas of my life. Karen's campaign intensified. The next week brought an absurd list of HOA regulations she insisted I was breaching. Grass too long by precisely 1.5 inches. Trash cans left out for an extra 30 minutes. Each citation was a tactical maneuver, an attempt to drown me in the minutiae of compliance. I imagined her, pen poised over her clipboard, relishing the power in her scribbles. Whispers rippled through the community, a tide of gossip that lapped at my doorstep. I could feel their judgment, a chorus of unfounded accusations sung behind closed doors. Did you hear about the dog? Can you believe the nerve? Words like arrows, barbed and relentless, shot from the mouths of those who once offered friendly nods. I found solace in irony. My invisibility had never been so pronounced. In the quiet of my home, I crafted responses, each letter a shield against her onslaught. I gathered evidence, a mosaic of truths pieced together to form an undeniable picture. Charlie's certification papers, medical documents, a testament to his purpose. My resolve solidified with each passing day, a quiet determination fueling my actions. One afternoon, a crescendo in Karen's symphony of control, she appeared at my doorstep. Her presence was sharp, a blade cutting through the serene afternoon. She spoke, her words like a storm, threatening and unyielding. It was a moment suspended in time, the air between us thick with unspoken truths. "The dog's a menace," she declared, her voice dripping with condescension. I met her gaze unwavering. My silence was my weapon, a mirror reflecting her absurdity. In that moment, I realized her power was an illusion, a fragile construct built on fear and intimidation. Charlie nudged my leg, his simple gesture grounding me in that shared reality. The battle wasn't over, but the tide was turning. I could feel it in the way the wind shifted through the trees, in the subtle nods of support from those few who understood. Karen might have launched an offensive, but she underestimated the quiet strength of understanding, the unwavering loyalty of a service dog, and the resilience of a community that, though fractured, began to see through the cracks. We stood there, a tableau of defiance and determination. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lawn, heralding change. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street, painting a quiet picture of our suburban enclave. Yet beneath this calm exterior, the tension simmered like a pot on the verge of boiling over. I watched from my window as Karen, the self-appointed overseer of our homeowners association, strolled with purpose down the sidewalk. Her eyes swept the neighborhood, scanning for any hint of nonconformity. In the wake of her last stunt, when she summoned the police over Winston's barking, my loyal golden retriever and certified service animal, I had sensed an opportunity. Karen, with her penchant for control and order, underestimated those who moved with quiet resolve. So, I began documenting everything, meticulously, methodically. Every letter she slipped under my door, every passive-aggressive comment tossed across the yard. It was all carefully cataloged. Winston lay beside me, his warm body radiating comfort. His occasional barks were not the ruckus Karen dramatized, but rather the soundtrack of our life, a gentle reminder of his presence, his purpose. He sensed changes in my mood, in the atmosphere. The tension with Karen had not gone unnoticed by him. He responded to it with an intuitive calm, a gift in times like these. I thought about leverage. Karen's Achilles heel was her need for control. Her fortress was the HOA, her battlefield the bylaws she wielded like weapons. But power, I had learned, is as much about perception as it is about reality. So, I crafted my counterattack with care, weaving it with the kind of subtlety that Karen would never see coming. First, the records. Each note and noise complaint became part of a growing dossier. Then I reached out to neighbors discreetly, those who had fallen prey to her unsolicited micromanagement. There was strength in numbers, I knew. A community only needed a gentle nudge to recognize its own power. In the early evening, I walked Winston to the park, the air cool and the trees whispering secrets to one another. I thought of Karen's desperation to mold our neighborhood into her vision. Her need to call 911 over a barking dog was not about noise, it was about control. I saw through her veneer of civility to the insecurity beneath. The knowledge was quietly empowering. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I returned home, Winston trotting beside me, his tail a metronome of contentment. I sat at my desk drafting a letter to the HOA board. It was not a complaint but a proposal, a call for a meeting to discuss the bylaws, to address the balance between individual freedom and community guidelines. I suggested a focus on compassion, understanding, and the essence of neighborliness. The irony was not lost on me. Karen had sparked this change with her overreach. The very rules she clung to could be her undoing. I sealed the letter with a sense of quiet satisfaction, knowing that my words were both a shield and a sword. They would cut through her facade and reveal a path forward for all of us. In the days to come, a new narrative would unfold, one where community mattered more than compliance, where Winston's gentle barks would be a song of resilience, echoing the truth that strength lies not in domination, but in the ties that bind us together. And as I prepared for the meeting that would redefine our neighborhood, I felt the power of purpose. Karen had underestimated me, but she would soon learn the quiet might of those she sought to control. We were no longer just neighbors. We were a force for change, united by the simplest of desires, to live and let live. The evening light slanted through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the room, a silent testament to the strange peace that followed the storm. Outside, the world wore a dusky cloak of twilight, the air heavy with the scent of impending rain. In this muted light, the legal papers on the table seemed to glow with a quiet intensity, their presence both comforting and formidable. Karen's call to 911 had been an act of desperation, a flailing attempt to assert control in a world slipping through her grasp. My dog Max lay curled at my feet, his breathing steady and reassuring. The memory of that day lingered still, the flashing lights, the tightened leashes of authority, and the quiet dignity in Max's eyes as the officers realized the truth. A certified service animal, unjustly accused. The irony was not lost on me. Karen, with her impeccable posture and ironclad grip on the neighborhood, had overplayed her hand. The community watched, eyes wide, as her carefully constructed facade began to crack. The legal route was never my first choice, but it was the necessary one. Quiet steps, strategically placed, with the weight of the law behind them. I had contacted an attorney, a cool-headed professional with a penchant for justice and a reputation for cutting through bureaucratic nonsense like a hot knife through butter. Together, we laid out the parameters of a restraining order, a cease and desist, and a formal complaint to the HOA board. It was a symphony of legal jargon and carefully constructed arguments, each note a testament to quiet defiance. Max shifted in his sleep, a soft sigh escaping his lips, and I ran a hand through his fur, feeling the warmth of his trust seep into my skin. This wasn't just about Karen. It was about standing up for something larger, for Max, for the countless others who had been wronged by someone wielding power without empathy. As the rain began to patter softly against the window, I thought of the HOA meeting scheduled for the following week. Karen would be there, of course, with her sharp smile and even sharper words. But this time, the narrative would shift. The community was waking up, their voices no longer muffled by fear or compliance. I could already picture the scene. The hushed whispers, the sideways glances, the dawning realization that Karen's reign was no longer absolute. The papers on the table were more than just legal documents. They were symbols of change, harbingers of a new order where justice outweighed control. The rain fell harder, a symphony of nature, underscoring the steady rhythm of my resolve. I glanced at the clock. Time to prepare for the meeting, for the confrontation that would undoubtedly shape the future of our neighborhood. And yet, deep down, I felt a sense of calm, a certainty that the steps I had taken, though small and quiet, were powerful enough to make a difference. Max stirred again, waking from his slumber, and gazed up at me with eyes full of trust and understanding. Together, we had faced the storm, and together, we would step into the clearing. A world where fairness and kindness held sway, where even a small bark had the power to echo through the halls of power, a testament to the quiet strength of those who refused to be silenced. The world outside my window had softened in the last few hours. Rain drizzled lightly, casting a silvery veil over the neighborhood, quieting even the most persistent echo of Karen's indignation. My dog Max lay peacefully at my feet, a certified service animal, oblivious to human pettiness and the absurdities that plagued our recently tumultuous existence. His breathing was steady, a soothing rhythm in the silence that followed the storm. It hadn't taken long for the news of Karen's latest escapade to ripple through the community like an unexpected squall. The HOA meeting this morning was the gathering of a small battalion, each member armed with grievances, observations, and a shared exhaustion. Faces were drawn with anticipation, eyes sharp and searching. There was something almost theatrical about the way they sat, waiting for the curtain to rise on the final act of our neighborhood drama. Karen arrived late, an entrance punctuated by the conspicuous click of her heels against polished floors. Her expression was a peculiar mix of defiance and anxiety, a taut mask that barely concealed the chaos beneath. She was a performer on a stage she had constructed, yet her lines had deserted her. The room's energy shifted as our HOA president, a man of few words and much weight, cleared his throat, drawing attention with a gravity that felt almost tangible. In the quiet after his voice cut through the air, the grievances were laid bare. The realities of living under Karen's reign were recounted with a clarity that was both sharp and painful. I watched as Karen's bravado slowly wilted under the weight of communal discontent. There was irony here, in how the power she wielded with such gusto now crumbled under the same scrutiny she had inflicted on us all. The tide had turned, and it was sweeping her away with a quiet inevitability. Max stirred at my feet, his ears twitching as though sensing the change. He was the unassuming hero in this narrative, a living testament to the absurdity of Karen's crusade. I felt a grim satisfaction at the thought. The meeting concluded with a resolution that left Karen sidelined, her authority stripped, and her influence reduced to a whisper. The community had restored its balance, the scales tipped back to a fragile equality. Karen left without a word, her heels silent against the carpeted floor. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world gleaming anew. I stood at the window, Max by my side, watching as the neighborhood slowly exhaled. The sky was clearing, the clouds parting to reveal a sun that peered tentatively through the gaps. It was a symbol, perhaps, of new beginnings or simple relief. In that moment, I felt a quiet kinship with the faces I had come to know so well. We were a mosaic of stories and struggles, bound by shared spaces and the quiet rebellion against a solitary tyrant. As the neighborhood began to heal, I realized the truth in the irony that had unfolded. It was not the barks of a dog that shattered the peace, but the unchecked echoes of a singular voice. Max nudged my hand and I smiled, feeling the warmth of his presence seep into my bones. The world was calm again, the storm just a memory. And in the silence that followed, I found solace in the simplicity of the moment, a quiet victory that needed no words.